I am Joseph, 27 years old, currently working in real estate. My girlfriend Sarah and I have been together for 8 years. She is 2 years younger than me. Although we haven't made plans to get married, we've been living together for 2 years now. We reside in a comfortable house I bought in Austin, Texas. Sarah is amazing. She's beautiful and understanding. We share everything and do everything together. I often take her to gatherings with friends and business partners. People often tell me how lucky I am to have Sarah. I have a close friend named Charles, and Sarah has a close friend named Selena. Charles has been hitting on Selena, and he asked Sarah and me for help in winning her over. It would be great if they became a couple. We've been happy together until one day. That day, I had an important meeting with clients, so I told Sarah I would be home late. Around 6 p.m., Sarah texted me that she had already arrived home. Feeling reassured, I continued my work, planning to surprise Sarah with a bouquet of sunflowers when I got home. Sunflowers are her favorite flowers. But things didn't go as planned. I ended up coming home 3 hours later than expected. I hurriedly called Sarah right after finishing my work, but she didn't answer. When I arrived home, it was nearly midnight and the lights were still on. I thought Sarah was waiting for me. Entering the house with the bouquet and a cheerful smile, I called out to her, but there was no response. I hung up my coat and put down my laptop, holding the bouquet, and rushed to the kitchen. She wasn't there, although the dining table was set and the food had gone cold. I found it odd. Perhaps Sarah was upset that I was late. I ran upstairs to the bedroom, but it was dark inside. I turned on the light, but Sarah wasn't there. She wasn't in the bathroom or the study either. I started to feel worried. Sarah never gets upset for no reason, and she wouldn't leave me without saying anything to me. Searching throughout the house again, I urgently called Sarah's phone. The ringing echoed somewhere. I chuckled, thinking Sarah was just playing a prank on me. Following the sound of the ringing phone, I once again felt disappointed and more worried. Sarah's phone was lying in the kitchen sink. I unlocked her phone, and the screen displayed our ongoing conversation. Her message asking me when I would be home hadn't been sent. I began to panic. Sarah had never behaved like this before. I called Sarah's parents and her best friend Selena. They all said Sarah hadn't been to their places and hadn't been in touch. I searched the house again, praying that this was just one of Sarah's jokes. I felt utterly helpless and panicked. I called the police to report Sarah missing. They told me to calm down. She might have gone somewhere and forgotten to take her phone. They asked me to wait until the next morning. I was extremely anxious and I couldn't sleep that night, pacing back and forth in the living room, hoping to see Sarah's silhouette. Sarah didn't return, and the police began their investigation. The last surveillance camera footage showed her walking home, carrying a bag. She hadn't left the house since then. There were no signs of forced entry into the house. Nothing valuable was taken. Could Sarah have disappeared? With no leads, the police investigation began to stall. I felt like I was going crazy, not being able to find Sarah or understand why she disappeared. A week later, I received the devastating news that Charles, my best friend, was also missing. Coincidentally, Sarah and Charles went missing on this same day. I was plunged into despair. My intuition about this wasn't good at all. Nearly a month after Sarah and Charles went missing, my health and work deteriorated significantly. Several times I met Selena, but she didn't seem concerned about Sarah and Charles. Selena had a new boyfriend. Stupid. That girl and Charles disappeared at the same time, and you didn't notice anything unusual? They're probably having a good time somewhere. I regret trusting these two. Selena's words shocked me. My intuition always being vigilant, I searched the house again. Standing in front of the door leading to the basement, my heart raced and I struggled to breathe. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. A strong smell of death hit my nostrils. In the corner of the basement was Sarah, wearing the dress I had given her. But she didn't look like my beautiful Sarah anymore. Next to her on the floor lay Charles. I recognized his familiar figure. He lay there, arms reaching towards the door. Panic and agony overwhelmed me. I couldn't remember how long I stood there trying to compose myself and call the police. After the autopsies, the police revealed Sarah's cause of death was suffocation due to strangulation, along with signs of assault. Charles was determined to have died after Sarah, with multiple stab wounds to his abdomen and chest. At the crime scene next to Sarah and Charles' bodies, the police found a kitchen knife. There were Sarah's fingerprints on the handle and Charles's on the blade. That knife was one of the set in my kitchen. What horrifying event had occurred to them? Now I understood why Charles always tried to meet Sarah. Was there really a relationship between Sarah and Charles that I didn't know about? Selena's words contained some secret. Losing Sarah was truly painful and horrifying to me.
I'm Daria, 21 years old, living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family is middle class and I have 4 siblings. After graduating from high school, I went to work to help my parents and my siblings. I chose babysitting because it didn't require any degree. After several years of working in my hometown, I came to New York. I wanted to increase my income by working for rich families. I went to Manhattan, New York, where the world's largest concentration of billionaires and millionaires is located. I was hired to babysit for a family who lived in a house that looked like a castle in a fairy tale. I am responsible for taking care of 3 children, Baron, 10 years old, Savia, 8 years old, and Aiden, 6 years old. The 3 children were perfect. They are very polite and obedient. Baron, Savia, and Aiden are not the same. Each child will resemble their father in some way. As far as I know, the boss is a businessman, 44 years old. He will be home on odd days of the week. I also never saw his wife. Surely such rich families will have complicated stories like those in the movies. Nothing would come of it until the last few weeks. I received a call to my family's landline. The children are about to be in trouble. Save them quickly. A man's voice, very deep and a bit frightened. I asked who he was, but the other end of the line kept repeating the same sentence. The children are about to be in trouble. Save them quickly. I felt uncomfortable and hung up. I think it's a prankster from someone having a mental problem. The next day, still in the same time frame, I received another call. The girl is in danger. Save her quickly. I was startled to realize that this voice was the man from yesterday. Who are you? What is your relationship with this family? I quickly asked him, but he repeated what he had just said and hung up. I fell into confusion. What is up? The boss's powerful and slightly annoyed voice rang out right behind me. He must have heard something while I was talking on the phone. I hastily told him about the 2 calls from the man. He immediately got angry and asked the workers in the house to unplug all phone lines. I suggested calling the police, but he immediately got angry and shouted loudly. He asked me to take good care of the children and not to do anything else without permission. Everything went normal until 5 days later. I went up to Savia's room at 6 o'clock to call her down for dinner. Knocking on the door for a long time, Savia didn't want to open the door. I opened the door and went in. I looked around the room and couldn't find her. The iPad was playing the movie Savia was watching. I called out, but she didn't answer. Running downstairs in a panic, I quickly told the housekeeper to quickly call the boss. Savia was missing. But the strange thing was that everyone present in the dining room was indifferent to what I said. They continued to eat their meal very calmly. Even Baron and Aiden did not react when they heard their sister was missing. I froze looking at these people. Don't they have any emotions? I decided to call the boss myself, but he didn't answer the phone. I really wanted to call the police, but remembered his angry reaction the day before. I had to put the phone away. I'll wait until the evening when he comes home. Today is also Thursday. As soon as I heard the sound of his car, I quickly ran to tell the boss about Savia's disappearance. But his reaction once again shocked me. She misbehaved. She will be punished and come back in a few days. I'll say it again, just mind your own business. His cold and bloodshot eyes looked straight at me. It made my body stiffen. His eyes gradually turned back to brown. I panicked, tried to hold my breath. bowed my head, and ran quickly back into my room. I'm scared, but I'm making a lot of money working here, so I choose to stay quiet and try to do my job well. 3 days later, Baron continued to disappear. The boy disappeared, leaving the room cluttered with many things. I was extremely panicked when incomprehensible things continued to happen, but the attitude of the people living in this house really makes me feel creepy. A housekeeper, she came in at the same time as me, revealed to me the reason why Baron disappeared. The boy was also taken to be punished because he refused to take medicine. Medicine? Is Baron sick? I didn't know about this when I joined the job. A series of questions appeared in my mind. It's been almost 2 weeks. Baron and Sabia still haven't come back. One day, I went down to the warehouse to find Baron his favorite ball. I was a bit startled when I saw the desk phone stored in here. I stood looking at the phones for a while and decided to go over and plug in the red phone I'd received 2 calls before. As soon as I plugged in the phone, it immediately rang loudly, causing me to panic and answer the call. I don't want anyone to know what I'm doing. My heart was beating very hard. I tried to breathe evenly. On the other end of the line was that man's voice. "Quickly, get out of there. You will be the next victim." I didn't answer. I tried to calmly continue to listen. "You'll be forced to drink deadly drugs. You will lose all consciousness and emotions. You'll become a living doll. He will sell you as a sex toy." My eyes widened as wide as possible. Tears welled up. I covered my mouth tightly, trying not to sob out loud. He was so cruel that he used his own children to make money. Maybe his wife was sold in that way. Not just one, but 3 wives, with 3 children. All I could think about right now was running away. I have to escape this horrible place. Just as I turned around to run out, at the warehouse's entrance, a tall black shadow was staring at me with cold, bloodshot eyes.
I'm Victor, 25 years old, living in Utah. I have a very close friend named Rose. We have known each other since college. After graduation, I settled and worked in Utah to be close to family, while Rose moved to Washington for work. Even though we were quite far apart, every year Rose and I would try to arrange our schedules to meet up or travel together. That year, we planned a 5-day vacation at Huntington Beach, California. Rose and I had sorted out our work schedules. Because we were far apart, we both took the initiative to travel from our respective locations and meet in California. On the first day of the vacation, I was luckier than Rose as my flight went smoothly. However, Rose's flight encountered some issues, and she called me to say she would be about 3 hours late. I was somewhat disappointed that things didn't go according to plan right on the first day. But there was nothing to be done about it, so I went to Starbucks at the airport to buy some coffee and pastries. After sitting in Starbucks for a while, I started to feel a bit suffocated. I decided to return to the airport lounge to wait for Rose since she would have an easier time finding me there. A while later, while looking at my phone, a man nearby caught my attention. He seemed to be struggling with his suitcase. It looked like he was asking a few people nearby to hold his suitcase for him, but no one was willing to help. He appeared quite flustered and anxious, constantly looking at his watch. I also glanced at the time on my phone, realizing Rose's flight wouldn't arrive for another hour. Thinking I had plenty of time, I decided to approach and help him. He was very grateful, continuously thanking me. He introduced himself as Egan. Egan said he would be back in 30 minutes and handed me a piece of paper with a phone number before hurriedly leaving. The paper was typed neatly, not handwritten. I didn't get a chance to ask Egan what he was up to, but I wasn't curious anyway. I continued waiting at the airport, this time waiting for both Egan and Rose. 30 minutes passed, but Egan hadn't returned yet, so I told myself I'd wait a little longer to see what happened. Lost in my phone, when I looked up again, Egan was already 20 minutes late. I called the phone number Egan had given me, but it said the number didn't exist. I double-checked the number I dialed, and it matched the one on the paper Egan left behind. I tried calling many times more, but the phone kept saying the number didn't exist. I started to panic, unsure if this Egan guy was just messing with me or had some other motive. All I had was this piece of paper with a phone number that I couldn't contact. All I could do was wait and hope that Egan would return soon because I had a long itinerary with Rose. 20 more minutes passed and Egan still hadn't shown up. At this point, I was extremely anxious. I searched the suitcase for any accurate contact information Egan might have left behind. As I sat down to inspect the suitcase, I noticed it was nearly soaked, with a faint pink liquid dripping onto the floor. It had a strong, familiar smell, like the cleaning solution I often used. The suitcase was quite old and even its lock was broken. It seemed like the contents had shifted and leaked out. I was disappointed not to find any other personal information about Egan. Later, Rose arrived and we were happy to see each other. Rose was excited to continue the planned vacation, but I needed to deal with the suitcase first. We decided to take it to the airport security personnel. As we started moving, I was surprised by how heavy the suitcase was. It estimated to be about 120 pounds. I asked Rose to pull her suitcase so that I could move Egan's suitcase more easily. Struggling to pull Egan's suitcase ahead, Rose followed behind. After a while, the sound of tearing fabric made me quite uneasy. Looking back, the suitcase seemed fine, so I continued moving. Suddenly, there was a loud tearing sound, and Rose immediately screamed and collapsed. When I turned around, the sight before me left me petrified. From inside the suitcase, a neck was protruding. I emphasized that it was the neck of a headless body. People around us noticed, screamed in fear. Many of them panicked and ran away. Rose had fainted and I was terrified and confused. My brain couldn't process, think, or function anymore. I sat down on the floor staring helplessly at my dear friend. Airport police arrived quickly, and the suitcase containing the body was taken to the station. Rose was taken to the medical room. The police asked me many questions, but all I could provide was the piece of paper Egan had given me. It was then that I realized something was wrong. The phone number on the paper was typed, indicating that everything was premeditated rather than spontaneous. Why didn't I realize it at the time? The police used data from the security camera and provided it to me for identification. It was the blonde man who had given me the suitcase. I was detained at the airport police station for the next 2 days to coordinate the investigation. The body in the suitcase was examined, and the identity was determined. It was a high school girl reported missing by her family 3 days ago. After investigating all the citizen records, the police identified the man in the security camera footage. That man's name was Joe, not Egan, a 17-year-old teenager living in Michigan. Realizing the absurdity, the police continued investigating the fingerprints on the paper scrap in the suitcase. Strangely, the fingerprints found did not match those in the population management database. They also did not match the fingerprints of the teenager named Joe. In the end, who was that man? And why was he so ruthless? I was truly exhausted by those horrifying events. My and Rose's vacation was ruined. I should have been more vigilant and noticed the strange thing about Egan's paper. My trust and kindness were exploited. Even today, almost 5 years after that incident, I still can't escape from that horrifying story.